Being an active listener is one of the most essential tools that you can have to build relationships. It really is the only way that you can understand another person's perspective. But it doesn't come naturally and it's not so easy to do.
But you can develop the skills. So in this series, we are going to delve into the science as well as give you some actionable tips and tricks that you can use to be a better listener.
Join us for the Power of Listening series. Hello everyone, if you are watching this video, then you know this is video number 7 in the Power of Listening series.
Wow, we've already gone through 7 videos.
Yeah, we're there. In the last video, we talked about how to have a curiosity mindset, and we mentioned that there is something that gets in the way quite a bit, our own selves. So in this video, we're going to help dive a little bit deeper into why our own stories get in the way and how you can overcome it. Now, we talked about in the first video this long list of reasons why we suck at listening, right? And on there was our own selves, all the things that we tell ourselves. So the to-do list, the checklist, the fact book. Oh, we love fact book checking people when they're talking, don't we? Those judgments. And we've gone through a lot of this. But those really do get in the way of us being an active listener. And it probably is one of the most difficult things to overcome. So we want to help you understand it. We want to help you to overcome it. When you can honestly listen to somebody, like in silence, where you are giving someone the space to just tell their story, to just communicate with you, it shows a sign of respect. We've all had that before, where somebody just really lets us tell it all. And they're not interjecting. They're not telling their own stories. They're not asking questions that have nothing to do with it. They're not zoning out, and you can tell they're zoning out. They're truly present and listening to you. It feels good, and it shows respect. And this is a way that you can really be a great active listener. So we want to make sure that you understand how to shut those stories down.
A lot of times we tend to listen to respond. And I don't think that this is I don't think that this is really intentional in any way. This is how we're trained. It's how we're hardwired. When we are going through school, we are trained to become educators. That is our role, to help our patients by helping to educate them and let them know what it is that they can do, to let them know what conditions they have, how they can prevent them, how they can actually treat those conditions as well. And so it's really ingrained in us that we are educators. So when we hear someone talking to us about a problem that they have or something that they're unable to do, by default, we are screaming in our heads to be like, oh my gosh, I can help you. I can help you. Like, let me tell you, this is an option. This is an option, you know, and that's where we default to. And it's not malintentioned. It's because we want to help. But a lot of times we start to offer that advice before we have the full picture of what's going on, before we have a full understanding of what barriers exist for someone. So we really want to be able to kind of shut that off. We know it's there. We have that knowledge. We just want to set it on the back burner until we fully understand what someone's trying to share with us. Now, another thing that happens is something called mirror neurons. When we hear a story, something enticing that we're able to relate to. So if we think about someone who just came in and they're telling us how they had the most relaxing morning, they were sitting by their wood stove, warming up, drinking a nice cup of coffee, we have mirror neurons that will light up to where literally if we were to scan our brain through an fMRI, it will look like we are living that same exact experience. We're going through the movements. We're putting the coffee up to our mouth. Like the same exact components of the brain are activated. And in return, what do we want to do? We want to share that experience. Like, oh my gosh, I've done that before. Like I have the same thing at home, or I wake up and I have the same routine. And we want to do this for the sense of bonding, right? It's so we can say, I am like you. We have all of these similarities, and we just get really excited to share that. But what happens is we usually don't loop back into their story. It just kind of becomes this tangent that pulls in a totally different direction. Mm-hmm. And then we lose the value that was existing behind their story and what they were trying to share with us. And once again, it's not intentional, and it takes so much practice to not do this. I know I still interrupt people like on the daily, and then right afterwards I'm like, damn it, I did it again. So it takes practice. So we're going to give you some tools to be able to make sure that you are not getting sidelined by your own stories or by your own internal dialogue.
Tip number 1 is to remind yourself to listen. We have all had moments where we are listening to somebody and then we zone out. We went to that to-do list, we went to the fact book, and we catch ourselves. Ding, ding, ding. First and foremost, congratulations on catching yourself in this moment. That's pretty amazing. That's a huge first step. So be proud of it. When you catch yourself, bring yourself back. Say, oh, I wasn't listening, I'm going to listen. And bring yourself back to that. Remember that curiosity mindset that we talked about in the previous video? We want to make sure that you bring yourself into that curiosity discovery mindset as much as possible. So having those internal questions to yourself, like, what am I curious about? What do you think is going to happen next? What are they talking about? Where'd they get that information from? And also, the negative things that come up, the judgments, making sure to flip it to the positive. Because anytime we say, I don't believe this person, I don't think they have good information, I've heard this story before, I don't really care, we shut down and we're no longer actively listening. So reminding ourselves to listen positively, saying, I wonder where they got that information from. You might say they usually don't have anything good to say, but I wonder if today they have something good to say.
Tip number 2, thinking back to those mirror neurons that we were talking about. If you find something that you share in common with the person that you're interacting with, it is great to celebrate it and to recognize it. However, we don't want to detract from what it is that they are sharing with us. So even if internally you just have to say, connection, which is what Christina's daughter Gracie says when she finds something that she has in common with someone.
She'll always go up to her friends and be like, oh, connection, you like blue, I like blue, connection.
And so that's perfect, because the reality is that when we find these commonalities, that is what relationships are made out of. That is how we bond with people, is we say, you're like me and in this way. However, if we kind of detract from the story they're sharing with us and go off on a sideline, we may not regain the conversation. So I have a 4-month-old and a 2-year-old, and once my train of thought is gone, it's gone. It's gone. Like, it might come back in a couple days, but usually the chance for that interaction is gone. So allow yourself to be rewarded with that. Allow yourself to have that oxytocin release, that sense of belonging, that sense of connection with someone. But make sure that you're just saving that information for later on. You can look back and have a conversation about a commonality that you have later on. But trying to just move past it once you've identified it, allow it to exist, but making sure that you're listening to what it is that they're sharing.
Tip number 3 is don't let your ego get in the way. You know, that thing that says, I'm better than this person, I know more than this person. Oh crap, I just missed that information, but I'm not going to ask them to repeat that. That's what we're talking about here. We want to make sure that our ego is not getting in the way of us being an active listener. So make sure to check your ego at the door and acknowledge it when it comes and just put it aside when it shows up. So that way you can really pay attention. If you checked out for a moment, if you missed something that someone had to say, go ahead and ask them to repeat it. Be honest. Be authentic. We are humans, and being an active listener takes a lot of practice. So do not be afraid to say, you know what? I checked out for a minute. I'm sure you had something important to say. Would you mind repeating it? So tip number 3, please don't let your ego get in the way.
And tip number 4, in order to listen to understand, instead of listening to respond, it may require us to ask some questions, to be able to get that ball rolling, to become curious, as we covered in the last video. So if you didn't check that out, make sure to go back and watch the last video. Now, in this next video, we are going to delve into how we can ask some good quality questions that are going to help us to pique our curiosity, to really get involved in the story that someone is sharing with us in order to ensure that we are getting the most out of the details they are sharing. So join us in the next video.